Hi folks, Mike Carney with Kayak Fishing Fun. I have Chris Kujawa from our friends at Quest Watersports in wonderful Ottowa, Illinois. And this afternoon, we're going to be converting my Mirage Drive GT that came with my iTrek 11 into a 180 drive, which I really like.
Absolutely.
I like the functionality, being able to instant reverse, like that is just such a huge benefit to me. And it's a relatively straightforward conversion, but you do need to understand the order and which parts you need and which things you need to get from Hobie. So Chris, you've done this multiple times.
Couple, yeah.
And who is like the customer that, is it iTrek people, is it
generally,
Passport?
It's both. You tend to see the iTrek 11 and the Passport 12 tend to be more of the fishing-oriented customer, but you might get somebody on an iTrek 9 who wants to fly with the kayak, where having a 180 would be beneficial, and you might not go to the 11 for that reason. That, or if you're in a tight area and you need to be maneuvering a little tighter on a Passport 10 or even an iTrek 14 Duo, where having that reverse and being able to do K-turns and pivots makes a little bit more sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And once you get used to it, like once you have the utility of that 180 drive, it's hard to not want that.
Yeah, we see some people that way too, where they've moved from a kayak where they had a 180 drive, maybe not kick-up fins yet, but they're used to having that reverse functionality and they don't want to part with that when they go to a Passport or an iTrek. So this is how we'd upgrade them.
Got it. Okay, so why don't you start, tell us what parts and pieces and tools we need, and
Sure.
I'll let you take it away.
Sure, so most of the parts on the GT kick-up and on the 180 kick-up, you're gonna notice they're very, very similar. There's only a couple of differences here. The spine will be replaced.
Which is this.
Exactly, this center section right here. And then because the spine doesn't come with them, you'll need your shifter sets as well, which are your forward and reverse tabs that you can pull to shift the drive around.
Got it.
These are the parts right here. So
Okay.
you've got your
Spine.
Yep, this is a Hobie Mirage Drive 180 kick-up spine. You're looking at $391 MSRP on this.
Okay.
And then you'll also need your shifter sets. They come forward and reverse. Reverse being a little bit longer with a red logo on it, and forward being a little bit shorter with a green logo on it. Each of these will run you $15.99 MSRP.
Okay, so another $32-ish.
About that, yeah.
And the functional difference is the great Mirage Drive action.
But able to go into reverse.
Into reverse, awesome. And both are kick up.
Exactly.
So any objects that you hit and they pop right back in, right? Okay.
Exactly.
Well, I'm anxious to see how you do this. So at this stage, I will stand back and let you walk me through which tools you need.
Absolutely.
And like the approximate time you think this takes.
It's gonna take you, if you've done it before or you're familiar with working on your Mirage Drive, probably in the neighborhood of 20 minutes. If you're brand new to it, try to give yourself about 45 minutes so you don't stress over time.
Gotcha. All right. Well, what do we need here?
Sure, so starting at the far end of the table, I've got a little bit of spray lubricant. I use some sail coat, Team McLube sail coat here. You can use anything though, silicone spray, WD-40. Basically what you're using that for is just to make sure that your tendons screw into the spine easily without snagging. A little bit of marine grease, which you're going to use just to help pack the bearings and keep those in line when you move your drums over from your Mirage Drive GT to the 180 spine. You're going to want some gloves and some paper towels when you're working with that stuff. And then we've got a 3/8 wrench, a 7/16 wrench, a 5/32 Allen key, and then I've got a flathead screwdriver here, but you could use pretty much anything else. I'm using this just to spread some grease inside the drum to pack the bearings. So not using it as a screwdriver, but you could use a popsicle stick or tongue depressor or anything like that. Your finger if you're creative. Whatever you need to smear that grease over.
All right, Chris, like you're the doctor. Like
right.
you tell me which tools you need and convert this to 180. So let's have
All
a
right,
seat and
yeah.
walk me through it.
Sure thing. So the first thing we're gonna do is use our 7/16 wrench to loosen up the nuts on one side of the cheek here. May be helpful to have a pair of pliers to hold that wire steady as you work on it. That's one. That's two. Fish that out
Okay,
there.
following so far. Nothing beyond my skill set.
None of this is difficult, there's just a few steps. And then lastly, you've got your idler cable here. Get that on there.
And these are all cables that during like the course of a year, you would want to familiarize yourself with anyway for routine tightening or adjustment.
Yeah, generally they ship with some Loctite on there, so they shouldn't be moving too much. But it is helpful to tighten every once in a while or just adjust if you
End
feel
of the
your drive.
season.
Exactly. Just make sure your drive is functioning right. That it's not too hard to pedal, it doesn't feel too loose. Best thing you can go off of is feel more than an actual measurement on these.
Gotcha.
Okay. Once you've got these nuts off, you're going to move the wires out of the way. Just push those back through the hole. And you're going to slide this right off of here. And one thing I like to do is get 2 fingers in behind it and just try to keep your bearings up in there. If you can. There's actually a fair amount of grease on here already, so we may not have to re-grease it. I'll do it on one side anyway, just to show it, but this one looks like it's gonna last without having to need to be re-greased. And then what we'll do is we'll work our chains off of the sprockets right here. That's the technical term for these little plastic nubs. So you just slide these off of here, and then we'll be able to slide the spine out from here. And you'll notice as I do this, these bearings like to fall out. And so, sure enough, a few stuck to the bottom of the bar there. It's a little loose in there. So we're gonna have to redo the bearings on here. We're just gonna pull out all the bearings from in here. Loosen up.
And they're just sitting in there.
Right, they just
pressure, gravity until you put the.
Yeah, the grease makes it smoother so they don't have a lot of friction as they rub, but it does add a little bit of tackiness that helps hold them to the sidewalls, which makes it easier to use that when you're repacking everything.
Understood.
So what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna use my flathead screwdriver and just scoop a little bit in here. I'm just gonna work it up and down on the sidewalls here, just so that we have a little bit of a coating, just something for the bearings to grab onto. Don't be afraid of being a little generous with this stuff. You can always wipe it off with a paper towel once you're set. Okay. So now that we've got our now that we've got our drum with grease inside, we're going to take our bearings. We're going to line them up right on the sidewall
So
here.
just dropping them in and.
Yep, you're trying to make sure they're straight, and the key thing is you'll see the hole on the outside or at the bottom from how we're loading it here. You want to make sure they're on the lip there and they're not sticking out of that hole. If they're sticking out when you go to put it on the on this center bar here, it might force the bearings out or cause things to get at different angles where it's not going to move smoothly and you might have to redo it. So we're just trying to get everything to stick alongside the sidewalls here. That should be the last one. Yep. So that's what it should look like once everything's packed. And we're going to take our spine here. Your spine should have this center bar installed already. If they ship it to you without it, or they change the manufacturing components to where they ship it without this, What you'll need to do is take the bar out of your old spine, and the easiest way to do that is to just take a hammer and knock it out.
Like a plastic hammer or rubber mallet or something?
Yeah, you'll want something so you don't mess up the ends. You could use a
Yep.
regular metal hammer, but use some wood or something in
yep.
between just so you don't scar up the ends there. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna put your existing drums onto the new spine. So the key thing to remember here is the way that the spine is gonna be oriented when you're using it. So your pull tabs will be facing you, your idler pulley will be away from you. Likewise, if the idler pulley is not already on your spine when you get it, there is a set screw right here, which I believe is a 1/8 Allen key to take that out. And then this center bar will slide right out. There's a notch in it, a flat edge, where the set screw will line up with to keep that bar in place. And likewise, there are bearings in here too, so if the bearings fall out, you may have to repeat what we did in the drums.
Similar procedure.
Exact same bearings, everything's the
Yep.
same. I believe the length is even the same, but it's still better do one and then the other. Don't mix your bearings up so you know you have the right count on each of them. But make sure this is oriented the right way. And then the easiest way to make sure that your pedals are oriented correctly is you want the numbers on the adjustments here facing towards you. And your foot pad should be facing towards you. And again, the pull tabs will be facing towards the user and the idler pulley will be away from you.
So you don't grease the bar, there's enough grease and
There's enough lubricant already on the
Got it.
bearings and in the housing here that it's not going to matter too much on the bar itself.
got it.
So we're just going to take that, try to line that up cleanly, and it should slide on right like that. If your bearings were out of alignment, it may not go on easily, or you may have something sticking out.
So
Mostly
it'd be
on
a
this
good
end.
indicator whether you got it right.
Right. So if that happens, just slide it off, redo your bearings. You may not even need to add more grease. You might be able to just pop everything in place, but don't move forward until it slides on cleanly. And then we're going to take our other side, and that's just going to sandwich right onto here. And we're starting to look like a drive again.
All right. Well, so far I could do all this. So
None of it's all that difficult, but we'll take this one step at a time. So now we're going to set up our wires on here. We've got everything sandwiched together.
yeah.
First step is going to be our chains, because the idler cable is going to go over
Okay.
everything else. So first we're just going to take our idler cable and we're going to tuck it up here just so it's out of the way and everything runs under it. And then what I find the easiest way to get the chain set, this is going to be the most difficult part of the entire process, is getting the chains lined up correctly on the sprockets. So what I like to do is fold it in half right here,
Okay.
and then you'll end up where you have one link that ends up in the middle. That should be lined up on the middlemost spoke on your sprocket here, which is going to line up right with where the fins will go. So we're going to take this and we're going to keep an eye. There should be three exposed links on either side of that center link that we're doing. We're going to make sure we're going around the edge of the drum right there. And we'll go 1, 2, 3. It's this one. And we're going to take, this is where everything gets a little tricky. And we're just going to try to get that lined up right onto there. I'm going to give it a little bit of pressure just to get that right in the notch there. And now we're going to flip the drive over carefully. Make sure you're squeezing your drums together so they don't fall off and to a point where you're going to have to work on the bearings again. And then we're going to feed it over the top of the drum right here. Just in like that. Give it a little wiggle to get it through. And we're going to, just for now, hand tight our nut onto there. This may actually be a point where I'll take my gloves off. Yeah, it's going to be easier to work without the gloves at this point. And we're just going to get that hand tight for now. and we're gonna pull back just a little bit.
Create some tension.
Exactly, make sure everything's in line on the sprocket there. As your feet are together on the foot cranks here, your sprocket should be straight up and down. Yeah. And then we're gonna do the same thing on this side with the other chain. Right onto there, up and around, and back through. Okay. And then we're going to, again, hand tight this one right onto there. And then we're going to take your idler cable, and this should be going under the drum right here, around your cable, around the drum again, and then again we're going to take our last nut here. Make sure.
And those components are all stainless, correct?
Correct, yeah, all of them are stainless. That way if you're using it in fresh water or salt water, you're not going to be worrying about any corrosion on there. Although if you are using it in salt water, you still should rinse it off after every use. Okay, so now that we've got all our chains hand tight, we're going to take our 7/16 wrench and pair of needle nose pliers, or just something to grip the wires with. And what we're going for here is we want to tighten it up. Should be about even to the existing tension on the opposite side. Right now our idler cable has fallen off, so we're going to make sure it's routed under here, over the pulley, and then this is where it fell off. We're just going to get it around there. Once everything's tight, things shouldn't be falling off, but while we're tensioning, it is helpful to make sure everything's running over the edges as they should. And so right now we're going to tighten everything so that you can get just a slight pinch on the wires. You want them somewhat snug, but you still want to be able to make a slight indent with them as you pinch. They shouldn't be so rigid that you can't move them at all. And then once we're all set up, we'll be able to go back and see if they need to be loosened any further.
And there's no particular order, Chris, as to which ones you attack for?
No, they're all independent of each other.
Okay.
So we're going to go with the chains first and then the idler cable. That's probably the better way to do that, but I don't think there's a specific order on it.
Okay.
So now everything feels fairly comfortable. We can check tension and make sure we're not too tight in a minute, but the next step is going to be to move your fins from your old spine to the new spine.
Okay.
Out this way, and so this is where you'll use your 5/32 Allen key. Take you right here. Might have to grab my bigger pliers on here. So now that I've gotten larger pliers, we're going to be able to just grab that and just work it straight out. And then we'll follow the same step on the second one right here. So we're just going to unthread that.
And does it matter when you put this onto the new spine, Chris, that you're going through one side or the other?
Easiest way to do it is sometimes there's threads, sometimes there's not. And the easiest way to check is there's only one side that your pin is going to slide into. On the other side, it's going to be too small, and that's the side it'll get threaded into. If there are no threads present, they'll be created as you turn this in there. Because it's so snug, it wouldn't be able to go in otherwise. Pull that out. So now we just pivot this. And it does not matter which fin goes on which side, they're both identical, so there's no front and back here.
Got it.
And so now what we'll do is we'll take it, and we're just going to put this in enough to line up the holes right here. Just like that. Make sure the hole on the fin is lined up as well. And then we're just going to take our little set screw here.
Gotcha, because that's going through that hole in the back of the fin. Got it.
Correct. Yeah, everything. This is what everything is hinging on. This is what allows it to be kick up right here. So we're just going to use our Allen key to help pressure it in. Sometimes helps as you spin, but until you get to the other side, it's not going to be threading yet. And you'll notice you'll get to the other side because everything will start to get a little bit more stiff.
Yep.
And you're just going to thread. I like to have a finger on the open hole on the bottom. That way I can feel once the
threads are coming through.
Exactly. And that's your
Okay.
pickup fin right there. And then we'll repeat with the other fin. And we are almost done. Okay. Flush on this side, flush on this side. So, our drive is essentially done, but you're not going to be able to shift forward and reverse until we do our pull tabs. So, the center of the drive is done. Before we do that though, we're going to double check our tension from earlier. And the way you're going to do that is you're going to, let me stand up for this. You're going to pull your drive apart and you're going to let it fall. And that shows me I have too much tension. I need to loosen this up. So when
those
you
should fall perfectly vertical.
Yep. So right now,
or just beyond.
Yep. So I think it's just our chains. Our idler feels good right there. We've got a little bit of flex, but we're just not getting enough flex here or here. So we should get a little bit more flex than that. So we're going to loosen both sides fairly evenly to make sure that as we drop this, our fins should go just about even, if not past each other a little bit. So to loosen these up, it's the same way we took it off, but we're just going to make a couple slight adjustments here. So like that. Oops, sorry. And same thing right here.
Just relieving some of the tension.
Correct. And we're going to do this little by little. No need to make drastic adjustments at any point. So go like that. Check. That's how it should be.
Right to vertical.
Yep. So now that we know our drive and our cables are tensioned properly, we're going to be able to add our pull tabs, our tendons, forward and reverse shifters, however you'd like to refer to this.
Okay.
So,
Got you all set here.
and then if I can just see the lubricant there, the sail coat, perfect. And so we're going to use the lubricant. You don't necessarily need it, but I find it makes it a lot easier to thread the plastic into here. You've got plastic on plastic, which likes to grip itself a little bit. And with a thin bar right here, you just don't want to over torque anything to where it starts to twist or get messed up. So all we're going to do is we're going to take our spray lubricant and we're just going to spray it right on the threads there. And same thing, just a little bit into here. And now, to make sure we're shifting the right way, this should be forward, that should be reverse. And so if we pull right there, we can confirm that we're attaching the correct side to each other. So this is forward, this says forward on it, and we're just going to take this and we're going to start by hand, and we're just going to thread this together here, just like so. So now we got it started to thread. We're going to turn it as much as we can by hand, and then we're going to take our 3/8 wrench. I've got this convenient little nut right here, and we'll just get this right over onto here, and we'll be able to just carefully make sure you don't force these. Again, everything's all plastic, and the last thing you want is to strip anything out. So we'll just very carefully thread this into there.
And do you take it all the way flush, Chris?
Just about. We're actually there right now. The only thing you may do, right now we got lucky and this tab is out perpendicular to the shifter tab right here. If you're vertical or at a weird angle, you'll just back it off just enough so that everything is flat right here.
Gotcha.
Once you've got that in line, it does still say forward on here, but the green sticker makes it a little bit easier while you're on the water to see exactly what you're doing. So we're gonna peel that off. Make sure we've got this facing the right way. And we're just gonna slide that right over there. And just make sure that's on smoothly. And now we'll do the same thing for reverse. So again, I've already sprayed in the receiver there. So I'm just gonna hit this quick. Make sure we've got some lubricant on the actual cable, or on the threads rather. Let's go in smoother. And we're just gonna do that again by hand as far as we can. And then take our 3/8 wrench, and we're just going to use that to snug this right up. Okay. So there you go. All right, and so with that, your Mirage Drive GT kickup is now a Mirage Drive 180 kickup. And so, you're able to pull on your tabs here, shift into reverse, shift back forward, and your fins will kick up on impact. Now, if you notice there, it was a little tight getting kicked up, so we may need to make an adjustment here. And this is the last thing to touch on with these kickup drives. And this is true of GTs and 180s. You have these little set screws right here, most of which, depending on the vintage of your Mirage Drive, should be a Phillips head screwdriver. Some of the very earliest ones used an Allen key. Regardless, all you're gonna do is make very slight adjustments. Quarter turn, half turn, you should not have to make drastic adjustments. We'll just loosen that up a little bit. And then so on impact, they should kick up.
I see. Do you recommend to carry extra screws, tensioning screws, Chris, like in a...
It's not a bad idea to have. It's not the most critical thing though. If your tension screws wear out, what's gonna happen is they'll kick up extremely easily. However, the pedaling motion that pushes the boat forward
is going to keep them vertical.
Correct. So what you'll get is if your fins are too loose or you don't have those tension screws at all, the first step you make every time you begin moving is really just to get your fins in motion. So there'll be a slight hesitation or you'll feel them lock into place. So it's going to be a bit of a smoother ride if you don't have your tension screws. Tension screws are extremely affordable parts. I believe they're under $1 each.
So good idea to have a couple in a little care box.
Yeah, it doesn't hurt to have them, but if you run out of them, don't panic. You can still fish as much as you need to, and then just grab them when you can.
Well, awesome. I appreciate all that work, and I can't wait to give this new drive a break in maybe this afternoon if I'm lucky.
There you go.